That in Ukraine, Russia is fighting to protect Russia. Critics call it indoctrination.
There are children who just believe, they open eyes and they are ready to believe in everything. And that is very dangerous.
Because if there's one thing Russian history teaches us, it is this: that if you believe in everything a leader here says and does, without question, that can have tragic consequences. Steve Rosenberg, BBC News, St. Petersburg.
در واقع ترسی که داشتم به خاطر این بود که رقص دیگه، رقص همیشه ممنوع بوده و مثل خوانندگی، مثل
براسي من لناخي دلو خوشمل.
Well, after 10 days of peace talks in South Africa, a surprise deal has been reached between the government of Ethiopia and rebel forces in Tigray for a permanent ceasefire. It's almost 2 years to the day since a brutal conflict began in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, and since then a civil war has led to hundreds of thousands of deaths, millions of people have been displaced, and a population has been left on the brink of starvation. Now, the BBC is the first international broadcaster to obtain footage from inside Tigray since August, with the region cut off from the outside world. Of course, for much of the past 2 years, the conditions there have been extremely difficult to work in. Our senior Africa correspondent, Anne Soy, has this report.
It's a major breakthrough. Ethiopia's government has called it monumental. Rebels have agreed to disarm, but there is some level of caution.
This moment is not the end of peace process, but the beginning of it.
A previous ceasefire was breached in August. This footage is the first gathered by international media since then. A children's playground bombed. The Ethiopian government has always insisted that they are not targeting civilians. This granny fled some of the most recent fighting. I left my kids and grandkids, she says. She doesn't know if they survived. The displaced have harrowing stories to tell.
We saw elders being slaughtered, women raped and kids killed. We've seen many things. We saw these things, that's why we were frightened and came here. There are many atrocities in this war. People are dying because of the blockade and famine. Kids are dying due to a lack of medicine. We're losing people.
The region has been cut off from the rest of the country and world for nearly 2 years now. The people here have been without banking, means of communication, and power. Aid agencies say almost everyone in northern Tigray is in need of food aid. They are desperate for a return to normal life. At Mekele's largest internally displaced people's camp, Asefa Tsegai struggles to grow food for his family. Every harvest is a disappointment. He's desperate to go back to his large farm.
We were working hard and living our lives, but now we have nothing to do. No one is helping us. We've been here for a year now and received aid only 3 times.
The New Deal brings hope that Segais and many other families can begin the journey to reconciliation, but its success hinges on the commitment of the warring parties. Anne Soy, BBC News.
Well, a new climate report says temperatures in Europe have been rising by more than twice the global average. The World Meteorological Organization says this means alpine glaciers are receding and Greenland's ice sheet is melting, contributing to rising sea levels. Its report says communities will continue to be hit by exceptional heat, wildfires and floods. Azadeh Mashiri has more.
This year's extreme weather was a reminder that global warming is happening and it's accelerating. That's something scientists keep warning us. But now a new report by the United Nations says one region is warming faster than others: Europe.
So we often and rightly hear in conversation or communication about climate change about the 1.5 degree global temperature limit as set out in the Paris Agreement. But we must not forget that Europe actually warms faster than this global average.
Europe has warmed at more than twice the global average over the past 3 decades. Its average temperatures have risen by 0.5 degrees Celsius per decade, and the consequences have been severe. Last year, 500,000 people were directly affected, and hundreds were killed. It caused more than $50 billion in economic damage. There are a number of reasons why Europe's cities have now been dubbed heat islands. Land warms faster than the sea, and Europe has lots of it. Another is that the highest regions of the globe are quickly heating up. So the UN said even though Europe is making good headway in cutting emissions, it needs to do more to stop its rivers from drying up and to prevent floods that swallow up entire roads.
Even if we get it down to 0 emissions and we can limit it to 2, we're looking at conditions that are going to be a lot more extreme, and we're going to have to live with that. So building resilience into our communities, all those hard lessons we're learning through COVID and all the other terrible changes we're seeing, that's going to become the new norms.
The UN's climate conference COP27 is only days away. This report is a reminder of why scientists call climate change a crisis. Azadeh Moshiri, BBC News.
Let's talk to Professor David Karoly, a climate scientist at the University of Melbourne, who also serves on the Climate Council, a climate change communications organisation in Australia. Professor Karoly, thank you for talking to us. I wonder how much, if any of this, is surprising to you?
Look, it's not really surprising at all.